Awesome. Thank you so much, Danielle. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I know it's like right at the cusp of Labor Day weekend. So thank you, everybody, for making time. This is super exciting. Lots of hard work has gone into this. Thank you to everybody who has been part of the journey so far, and especially in the UBC MEL MHLP Alumni Association. This is, as everybody knows, the kickoff of the mentorship program. We obviously wanted to kick off a little bit earlier, as you know, you might have heard of before, but of course, COVID and all sorts of things are in the way. But we are still very excited to launch it, especially because this is that runway, that final stretch before people get to trying to place themselves, get positions and all of that. And having a little bit of support, as a second eye, an experienced eye to look over resumes or answer a few questions, not feel alone, we feel like it's very valuable. And so we think it's going to be a really valuable addition to at least the mentee experience and for mentors to be of that very valuable support, right? So I thought we'd start off maybe in a little unconventional way, but I thought we'll maybe if you go to the next slide and set the mood for a little bit of a mentorship meditation, if you will. Maybe what we can do is just close our eyes and take a deep breath in and breathe out, and let's go down a memory lane. You know, let's just go back to a point in time in our history when somebody helped us out, you know, somebody served as that mentor, as that person who was a guiding light in our life. Let's take a deep breath in, breathe out, and just relax into that memory and try to recall how that was, how that felt like to be guided by somebody who really did care for our future. Could be a parent, it could be a teacher, it could be somebody who is a fellow student. How did that feel? Think about the experience after you had the mentorship. How did it change your life? How did the actions you did differ from what you might have done without that support? And we can slowly come back to our world right now. And whenever you feel ready, you may open your eyes. Thank you for humoring me. I'm a meditation teacher, so I really enjoy kind of like these little journeys into our past. If you could go to the next slide, Daniel, I wanted to actually start off by hearing from folks if there was any interesting experiences, um, that you thought about. Did it help your job perhaps? Did it involve, get into a little collaboration and you ended up working with them, solving a problem maybe? Feel free to share, unmute yourself, and maybe, we can spotlight you. And I would love to hear from you, like this is be great to be able to hear from somebody other than myself. Anybody would like to share? I'm sure everybody's here had some sort of mentors or, people who've helped them along. Or everybody was an island. Oh, please, Sean, go ahead.
I think Crystal had a hand up first there.
Oh, please go
If
ahead,
you want to go
Crystal.
ahead.
Or you might be
Oops,
muted.
sorry, I was muted. Thank you so much for everyone for putting this together. I have limited experience with mentorship, but I was a mentor for nursing students through the University of Calgary. It was basically just a correspondence through email, kind of more informal. I'm hoping to connect more with my own mentor a little bit more regularly and hopefully in person. But I mean, for me, it was a really rewarding experience. So I'm excited to kind of be on the other side of things and learn more about this process and learn from all the experience in this Zoom room.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Sean, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, I was as you were kind of walking us through it, picturing a mentor I had in an old job, and she did a lot to help me kind of understand the business and kind of my growth through the business. And in that role, I was traveling a lot, and I would be out of the office for, kind of weeks, months at a time. And it was always kind of like a fun part of I would come back and hadn't, seen her, spoken to her much in a while, and like stop by her office and just, sit down and chat about anything and everything. And so I really appreciated the time she put in, because I didn't work on her team or anything. She just, you know, was helping out and helping me learn. And then another cool thing I'll quickly say is, as you were kind of giving examples, MK, of like, oh, maybe a parent or a teacher, like every word you said, I kind of had like an image of someone kind of flash quickly in my mind. It's kind of nice to just think of, it's not like that one person that stands in your mind, but maybe people have a few that have helped them at different times. So cool activity.
Yeah, it's what a journey, right? Like we've all had these little kind of experiences of people doing a little bit. Some have done a lot, without which, who are we, you know? It's so, thank you so much, Sean, for sharing that, the true spirit of mentorship, right? Nazia, would you like to share? See your hand is
Yeah.
up.
So during my initial career, so I had an internship program along. It was a government UN funded internship program initially. So this person who's no more with us, Mr. Richard Karstang, a conservationist, he helped me a lot. And he taught me a lot of project management skills at that time, because I was part of the project management unit. And I was greatly inspired by his work, because he had worked in this in the environmental protection and species conservation for very long. And the experience that I gained has been with me, like it's part of me for the lifetime. He was an inspiration for me, and he even after so many years he would help me uh, until he's not no more with us anymore. About 2 years back he passed away, but he was such an amazing person. I can relate how he helped me build my career. I was not that kind of a person. I changed because of it. Was great inspiration for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So good. Thank you so much. Sorry to hear of his passing. But that is what mentors do, you know, till their last. They are sharing, they're giving. Um, Definitely a great model for all of us. I'm not sure if we lost Daniel here. We're sharing the slides. What I'll try to do is share slides on my end.
Oh, and I'm sorry. Sorry about that,
Oh,
guys.
you got
Yeah,
no.
my computer stopped, but it's
Okay,
back.
okay. Ah, great, awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for sharing. I know it's a little, sometimes vulnerable sharing past experiences, but it was really great to hear about those kind of personal moments and how, I know whether people shared or not, we're all here because somebody helped us, somebody encouraged us, somebody nodded, gave us a little, a tip or two. So it's kind of at the heart of this program, right? So if you could go to the next slide. So this is what we have planned for today. Really simple. We want to talk about the program goals, both for the program in general, but also like individually for mentors, for mentees. We want to talk about some resources available. We'll put together some stuff to make this easier. You don't have to use all of them, but we want to kind of prepare folks for having, resources to be able to do this well. And we'll have a little question and answer session and see how we can answer and help with the whole thing. Yeah. So overall, like the whole mentorship program, like one of our main goals is to tap into the knowledge base of our MEL, MHLP alumni to help future cohorts. So those of us who have not had this program, this is the inaugural year of this program, we've always been wondering as we went through our cohorts, what is the experience of those people who went before us and they're already out and they're, learned all these lessons. How can we kind of interact? And they're long gone, there was that gap. And we felt like it would be incredible to tap into some of that knowledge for mentees. But we also want to enhance the leadership skills of mentors. So they keep coming back every year as mentors, and they keep refining their leadership skills, because a lot of us have now, really benefited from the MEL MHLP program, and now in positions of leadership as managers. Most of my role now is not actually in doing the analysis. It's in coaching. It's in keep making sure people feel good, they feel like they're supported, and that is essentially leadership, skills that I would really benefited from. I think even in the MEL MHLP program, and this gives an opportunity for mentors to practice, refine those coaching skills. Right? And the third is really for mentees, the mentees who would be receiving this mentorship, this program. Ideally, they become the mentors of tomorrow. They've been on both sides of it. They feel like they've gotten so much value from this that they want to give back as mentors the next year. And so we have this chain of giving that keeps going, right? So we really thought about, okay, so how do we achieve all of this value? And we kind of went back to like the goal of MEL MHLP in the first place. Why did we do this program in the first place? And it really comes down to being better leaders in areas where the world needs more help. And so we did surveys and brainstorming and everything, and found out like what is the aspects that really makes that better leader. It kind of boils down to these three aspects that we found: but career guidance, industry knowledge, and leadership skills. So these are really like the core aspects that we're looking to develop in individuals through the mentorship program. It really goes hand in hand with what we're trying to do. So going into like what are the goals and benefits for the mentees, right? So the first one is, of course, career guidance. Those who have gone before, they kind of know a little bit of what's going on in the field, or even if sometimes if they've not gone before and they're experienced and they're in the cohort themselves, sometimes they are mentors. They've been in the field for a long time. There are some mentors who are part of the current cohort. They just have a lot of experience and they feel like they want to refine their mentorship skills, and that's great. But mentors essentially being able to give career guidance to mentees. Networking opportunities, having a network here. I know a lot of folks have come here from other countries, but even if you are here, having the solid network of people who are part of your industry is vital as you are learning more about aspects of the industry you don't know, as you're looking for a job, as you're looking to hire. The last person I had to hire, I just got over with it. We had to go through over 120 resumes. If I had people who were, ready in my network who I was able to hire, that would have been much easier, right? Professional development. There's just so much that you have to kind of keep refining after your degree, that mentees knowing what is the right certification I got to do, what is the right software I got to learn. Like all of those are things that mentors can easily be able to guide and says, take this certification, that's not great. You know what I mean? So all of those kind of little pointers can save so much time and effort. And industry knowledge. And so knowing where the industry is going, knowing which grants are coming up, knowing where to focus your career onto is so valuable for mentees, right? So that's kind of like the mentee side of things. And for the mentors, again, networking opportunities, right? Like being connected to a pool of great talent of people who are, in a very short period of time ready to work, or people who are experts in a certain field. Like there were people in my cohort, for example, who are expert in solar, some were experts in wind and things like that. And if I had a question on hydro or something, I would rather be able to kind of like call somebody and be like, hey, I got a question, can this work? So knowing people in your network who can solve those quick problems is so valuable. And so kind of being part of a program like this gives you it expands your network, right? Leadership coaching practice is massive. As managers, as people in leadership positions, we're essentially transitioning into the age where you're a leadership coach. And the more practice you have in kind of these low pressure environments where it's really friendly and your job's not on the line, you just get better at it. And being able to help mentees on that journey in a way that's really fruitful for both the mentor and the mentee is absolutely golden, right? And just the fact that you're giving back, I think there's like a big thing in law of karma, like you give back, you're going to get back from somewhere else. Somebody's going to help you somewhere, and it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to give back. And also it's an opportunity. You've already, people who are mentors, a lot of them have already graduated, and sometimes you don't get to exercise those discussions and from a technical space, be able to kind of delve into some of the things that you talked about or studied in the program. And it's a place to kind of have these technical discussions in areas that you may not be having, right? And so it's really valuable to have a space where you can do that. So that's on the mentor side of things as goals and benefits. So these are the program details. A lot of this you've already kind of been getting through emails, but the schedule really starts now till December, kind of that final stretch for mentees or people who are in the current cohort. The frequency is we ask for a minimum 1 meeting a month. So it's not really like a very taxing kind of minimum requirement. We really would ask for open communication lines. So if there's like a quick question, a quick email, a quick text, something like that, ideally like that can happen so that the mentees are supported. But yeah, 1 meeting a month, Zoom, in person, up to you guys to decide. And that's the frequency. And somewhere in the middle of, somewhere in the kind of the end of October, we'll have like a mid-project check-in, just to check in. How's it going? Answer some questions, maybe offer a little more coaching. A session like this, really quick, an hour session. We'll do that, but that's kind of like the overall program details. Nothing very complicated. I think you guys are all being paired anyway with mentees and mentors. And so most of that logistics have already been done. Right? So we have some resources available. I'm sure a lot of folks are probably here for this. And so I'll give it over to Daniel to kind of talk about the resources and get into it a little bit.
Awesome. Thank you so much, MK. Yeah, I guess the way that I wanted to start this is that we are not professional coaches, and probably none of you are professional coaches, but there are lots of resources available. And part of the goal today is also to do some peer-to-peer learning. So I'm going to go through these resources, but I'm also going to ask you to share your experiences. And yeah, hopefully kind of our pooled knowledge will act as a resource. But here's a list. So we've created a mentorship guidebook or handbook. It was sent out in the email yesterday. I don't know if you saw it. I'll kind of take you through that quickly today, basically with these other sections. We're going to talk about some suggested topics for discussion so that you have a bit of inspiration in case you're not quite sure what to talk about in your sessions. Talk about expectations, the asking tell them continuum, the grow framework, and the goals framework. So let's just dive right in. Yeah, here is a cute little picture of the handbook. I'm going to show you what it actually looks like over here. Who actually, maybe just a raise of hands, who's gone through the handbook? Okay, see a couple hands. Awesome. All right. Well, I'll just give you a little speedy tour. It's pretty short. It's basically, some of the stuff that we've already gone through today, the goals and the timeline, the suggested topics for discussion, and then some tips on, how to have a successful mentorship relationship. So I'll skip some of this here. And you'll see here, there's kind of lots of details on, for each meeting, what are some topics that you could be talking about. More here on kind of how to agree on expectations, more on the asking, tell them, continuing that I'm going to go through today. So I encourage you to kind of take a look at this after, and I'll give you the summary in the rest of this presentation. Okay. Yeah, so first thing is, this may be your first time in a mentee or a mentor position, and you may have the question, what are we supposed to talk about? What is, like, kind of awkward. I'm paired with this person that I don't know at all, and they are supposed to coach me, or I am supposed to coach them. So we came up with a few kind of suggested topics. If you are having 4 meetings, you're encouraged to have more if you like, but at a minimum 4 meetings. The first one could just be to get to know each other. And you'll see in the handbook, there's a bunch of questions that we've added that could kind of help spark the discussion. The second one could be about career goals. So as a mentee, like, where do you want to go? What's the end objective for you? The third one could be about networking. We all know that it's all about who you know, and networking can seem super daunting. But there's some stuff that's really easy, and you'd be surprised. And when you take a deeper look at your own network, there's probably a lot of people that you can, kind of hit up for a conversation that could be very helpful. So we have some kind of questions to prompt that. And then the last one is about, how can you continue to grow your leadership skills through different training and education programs. The second kind of resource that we have in there is about setting expectations. We all know that a good relationship starts with clear expectations. So we've included a checklist of questions to go through together. For example, who sets the agenda for the meetings that you have together? How personal versus professional are we going to keep the relationship? What is the expectation overall? Like, will my mentor find me a job? Is that a reasonable expectation? Maybe, maybe not. So you'll see in the handbook, there's a list of kind of expectation questions to go through together. And we really encourage you to do that in the very first meeting so that you start off on the same page. This third resource is called the Asking Telling Continuum. And the idea here is, we all come from different backgrounds, different families, where the concept of mentorship can be very, very different. So, it all boils down to what's the best way to give advice? And I'm actually going to open the question up to everybody here. What is the best way of giving advice? What do you think? Just feel free to jump in with your idea.
Yeah, so like having discussion with the present cohort or the past cohorts, I see that giving an advice should be open instead of like being a father and saying you should do that, or it can be open that it has been done like this way, or I have done this way and I've got this response, or explaining with an example, and keeping it open instead of telling someone to go it in one single direction, and keeping a open set that this is one of the option and you have other options as well. So that is something then that person can decide, like, as per present circumstances, what is good for him and her.
Amazing. Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah. Any other ideas? What's the best way to give advice?
Hi, this is Barry here. So I think first, I guess one of the things is that seek to understand, whatever the relevant issues, and of course, don't be judgmental, and assist the person in exploring some of the opportunities or solutions for themselves, asking the right questions and things like that. So eventually the advice sort of, the self-created sort of advice by the individual who's seeking the advice. So that's just my one thoughts that I had. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. Start by understanding, that could be a great place to start for sure. Anybody else? Best way to give advice?
One thing quickly off the fly, I would say, first of all, actually touching on a subject that is actually of interest of the person that we're talking to, right? Maybe somebody just wants to give advice on something random. So first, being sure that we are talking about a topic of interest. Second, that the person is actually looking for advice, and having the permission for that to actually provide the advice or feedback. And probably then in terms of communication, one way that can also help, regardless if it's advice or just in general communication, it's a method that is called attack and confess, if it applies, where actually a person who's speaking recognizes some of the past mistakes or past something that this person has done and what happened, so that it can be addressed as I did this and this happened to me, so I'm telling you so that you understand what could happen to you. I think that could be a quick thing to do.
Awesome. Yeah, right on. I really like also how you started with, is advice what the person wants? Maybe they don't want advice. Really interesting. Yeah. There's also a couple people who shared here in the chat, so I'll just read those. Sean said, ask someone if they would like to hear your advice and in which way they'd like to receive it. Awesome. Esgi said, should be tailored according to the person who's listening. And Lily shared, give specific and applicable advice, and so you're all right. There's so many different ways to give advice. And the answer may really depend on personality and background. So this asking and telling continuum is basically a way to show that it's a spectrum. Providing advice can be, on this side, on the directive push side. So you're telling, you're instructing, you're giving advice, you're offering guidance, giving feedback, making suggestions. And at some point, it can kind of start shifting to the other side where it's more of a pull. You're pulling the information by asking questions, by summarizing what somebody's saying, or paraphrasing, or even just reflecting back. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but somebody repeating back to you word by word what you just said to them is super powerful. And somebody mentioned, really listen to understand. So, there's not one right or wrong side of the spectrum. And the reason I wanted to show this is that, you can play with these different areas. And as you're learning to become mentors or you're being mentored, try to understand where do you play most often? What works, what doesn't work, and try out different techniques. So yeah, I just want to kind of open up to everybody here, where do you see yourself on this continuum? Where is your typical comfort zone? Any thoughts? Maybe somebody who hasn't shared yet. Where do you fall on this continuum typically? Oh, I hear somebody.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, Helen. Good to see you.
Hey, how's it going? This is really interesting. I've never seen this before. And I would say that based on the type of mentorship that I have received previously, I found it really useful when they offered feedback and guidance. Because sometimes it depends on the situation as well, right? Because my mentors were not in my field, so they would, think of situations that they've been that are similar, and would provide me with, what they did in that situation and see if that would apply in my situation. So I think the suggestions and the feedback and guidance was helpful. And of course, they always started by listening and seeing where I was. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Thanks, Ellen. Where do you fall on the spectrum when you're giving advice to somebody?
I think it depends on the topic, honestly. And also like how much, I guess, because oftentimes it's not a right or wrong. It's usually on the gray zone, right? And in that sense, I think I would often ask questions and make suggestions and let them decide which way to go. But if it was something, for example, my rehab assistant who's telling me she's thinking about doing this with one of my clients, and I feel like that's a safety concern, then right off the bat, it would be, towards the, telling, instructing, right? So it kind of depends on the individual situation, what are the risks involved, and, where
Totally.
I'm implemented. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some situations where, if there's a safety risk, you don't want to ask them like, or maybe it could work. Like, should you be doing that? Like, it's a question. Does anybody else want to share where they see themselves on the spectrum?
Sorry, I didn't raise the hand, but I think I see myself asking questions somewhere. I have a lot of and telling stories too of my some of my experiences. So I think both goes for me, and to find out a way, a career path maybe. So expecting some career advice.
Yeah, great. Okay. Warren.
Hey, Dan. How's it going? I think what you just said in terms of like a safety thing, and I look at this list, and I think sense of urgency probably has a lot to do with it. Where if there's like some immediate need, then it goes into like the telling and instructing side of things. And if someone just wants to shoot some ideas around and see what sticks, we'll probably lean more towards the top right side of the spectrum. But yeah, definitely timing is important.
Yeah, good point. So hopefully this is a new kind of tool in your toolkit. It's in the handbook, so if ever you want to refer back to it, it's there. This was provided by a couple of coaches that I know, and there's definitely lots of resources about this online. And I saw somebody posted this was also including in one of the marketing classes. So the next one that I had here, and this is kind of where we'll finish up, is called the GROW framework. So sometimes when you're in a situation when you're with your mentee or you're with your mentor, and you don't really know maybe how to frame the advice or kind of talk through the issue. So the GROW framework is a really, I find, helpful way to help kind of talk through an issue. So it's a G for goal, R for reality, O for options, and W for wrap up. So basically, whatever the issue is, start with, talking with your mentee and figure out like, what is the goal? What is your objective for our session today? Or the next 10 minutes of our chat together? And also, what's the goal at the end of the issue? Like, where do you want to end up? And then you move on to the reality. What's the starting point? What's actually going on right now? Like, let's kind of paint the picture of your current reality. And that could be with regards to the situation, that could be in regards to the mentee personally, or of other people who are kind of involved in that situation. Once you have the kind of reality clear in your minds, then you can start thinking about some options. This is the opportunity to really kind of go wide, cast a wide net. What's the wildest way I could get to my goal? What is like the most conservative way I can get to my goal? And start building out those options together. And I always find it's like super helpful to do that, because together you'll come up with options that you had maybe never thought of. And then you wrap up. What's the way? Now that we've talked about the starting point, the end point, and the different paths to get there, which way are you going to choose as a mentee to achieve your goal? So I can give a very quick example of this in my life recently. I earlier in the year decided that I was going to take a sabbatical for the month of October, and pitched this to my boss, and it's kind of stressful, to take a month off. And he agreed. Yeah, he said, October is great. It's a slow time for us. That perfect. Like, you take that time off. So earlier this week, I emailed them saying, hey, there's about 5 weeks left. Here's my action plan so that I can take the month of October off. And he responded and he said, I'm not sure that's a good idea anymore. Let's talk about this more. So obviously I was like really stressed because I had made plans for the month of October. And so I went to go see a friend and we talked through this framework together. So she started with, what's the goal? And the goal here was, to keep my job, to keep the company happy, but also to take these 4 weeks off, which I had planned for a long time. Okay, so now that we have the goal, what's the reality? The reality is that the situation's changed. October is no longer a slow time. It's actually a really busy time. And working on a small team, if you put your tools down, that can make a big challenge for the team in October. Then we started talking about options. One option is I could hold my ground and say, no, I'm going to take those 4 weeks off no matter what, even if it means that I lose my job. Or the other end of the spectrum is I compromise completely. I say, all right, well, I'll take 2 weeks off. So we kind of talked about a bunch of different options. And she actually proposed an option I hadn't thought about is, instead of taking the 4 weeks in October, why not start a week later? And that actually kind of really was a really interesting option. So that's the one that I chose. And I pitched that to my boss this morning. And he thought that was actually a pretty good idea. So it looks like I'll still be able to take the month off. And there you go, a quick application of the framework. Okay, the last resource that we have in the handbook is the goal setting framework. This is pretty simple, but it's just the idea that when you have a goal, it's great to kind of break it down. So you can actually go beyond the goal and start further back. What's your vision as a person? What is your personal mission statement? What is the goal? And then what are some of the actions that you need to take to achieve that goal? And so we've included in the handbook a couple of resources, basically like a form that you can fill out to help you work through goal setting for specific challenges. That's it. I'll pass it back to MK.
All right, thank you so much for such a great explanation of all the resources that we have, and really do go into it. We didn't want to make like a whole 2-hour, 3-hour kind of session going through all the details of the goal setting framework and all of that stuff. There's quite a bit in there. Of great note, if there was something that I would like to be able to point out, it's like within the handbook and all that, there's like how to create even your vision statement. Just that one portion of it was actually a part of our cohort. Like they brought in an expert from Toronto Leadership Institute or something and led our cohort through how do you create a personal vision statement. That one thing changed a lot of lives, because after I graduated We created a vision statement, wrote it, put it in, spent some time thinking about it. And then months later, when I found my job, it was really in alignment with my values and everything that I wanted. And somehow, like, I was clearing some papers, and I found that paper that I had written my vision statement in class. It matched exactly what that my job, and it's incredible. Like, maybe it was like setting an intention for what I wanted, and that thing kind of like helped me make that happen. And so really, like, being able to, in a concrete way, come up with what is your vision statement is really valuable. And that's just one part of like the goal setting framework that's there. And that's just part of the handbook. And there's just a lot of really great paradigm shifters as part of the resources available, right? So really review all of that stuff, even if the mentorship relationship includes it or not. I think it's really valuable. As mentees, don't feel free to be able to kind of like incorporate some of this or ask for this or as well. It's not only things that the mentors use. It's definitely for both. We really want mentees to take leadership in kind of driving the frequency of the meetings and all of that. And so I think if mentees can go ahead and contact your mentors, if you haven't already, I know a lot of people have been contacting their mentors and CCing me. Feel free to not CC me. You could basically start that relationship and keep that going. Establish meeting times with them, once a month as a minimum, maybe more. Feel free to set those times for your schedules. And then towards the end of October, we'll do a little bit of a mid-project check-in, mid-program check-in, just to see how things are going. We don't have like a particular date yet. We'll announce that shortly, but that's kind of the next steps going from this. Yeah, we're essentially off to the races. Mentorship program has officially begun, based on, I know, a lot of hard work. We've kind of got to this place. Let's make the most of it. I'm really looking forward to the next few months. We're all here to support. If you have any questions, please email us, and we'll do the best we can to support.